Fitness influencers have been calculating volume completely wrong, and this is costing you gains. I had a subscriber, Mr. Tapatop, shout out to you from Nepal, who asked me about volume for natties and recovery. So I've done a full video on recovery, so this is the volume episode. When I first started in the gym, now this is 10 years ago, I was working out with my best mates with a sheet of paper from one of my mates' sister's boyfriend who happened to be a trainer. And there wasn't much info on volume, there wasn't much info on anything other than do what's on that sheet of paper. Nowadays, there's so much info on volume, and you hear everyone spewing the same 10 to 20 sets a week. And you hear now with the new study that Milo was looking into on his channel, there's no upper limit, so that's great. But what does this actually mean for us? So the old way of calculating sets, which yes, fair enough, has probably worked for you and it has worked for me, was 10 to 20 working sets split over 2 to 3 days. And the way in which we calculated these sets were target muscle only. So for instance, if we did bench press, we would only calculate that as a chest set, no shoulders, no triceps. So the old way of calculating volume will get you 80% of the gains. It's great, but it's not perfect. So what they're doing now is a fractional set. And what that is, let's take chest for example. So you do a bench press. We know you've got shoulder activation. We know we've got tricep activation. So what they're doing is they're counting that on total volume as 1 for the chest and a fraction, so half for the shoulders and triceps. Now, if I calculate this, right, I'm doing 24 sets a week for my chest. I'm doing 40 sets a week for my triceps. Yet, I've been doing this for the past couple of years. My triceps are underdeveloped, my shoulders are underdeveloped compared to my chest and my back. So why don't these fractional sets work? Well, it's simple. You look at the bicep activation versus the back activation. Let's do a row. Your bicep's not working half as hard as your back. There's no way on the planet. Let's say you're rowing 50 kilos. You can't bicep curl 25 kilos with strict form if you're rowing 50. Maybe some people can, but I sure can't. So why do we think it's working half? Why do you think it's lifting half that weight? It's definitely not. So this is going to lead to exactly where I am with undeveloped arms. So how does all of this help us and lead us to understand our own volume? Well, last year was a fantastic year for volume. A study came out that showed we cannot find the points at which we lose muscle when increasing the volume. Now, this is fantastic. This really excited me. I was like, this is fantastic. Now I just need to spend 5 hours in the gym, which doesn't exist. You can't do it, I can't do it. Maybe if you live in the gym and sleep in the gym, you can do it, but the real world, that's not gonna happen. So what does this mean? We need to do 10 plus sets a week. What we've seen, the difference between 0 and 5 is huge when it comes to muscle growth. The difference between 5 and 10 sets a week is also fairly large when it comes to muscle growth, but then it starts the law of diminishing returns. So the difference between 5 and 15 will be slightly less than 5 and 15, 10 and 15 will be slightly less than 5 and 10, and that just keeps going. So the difference between doing 30 sets and 40 sets is negligible, but there is a difference. So to calculate your optimum volume, you've got to say, right, how much time can I spend in the gym? And if you want to grow a little bit more muscle, wake up half an hour earlier, or go to gym a little bit longer and do more sets. But ultimately, you've got to do something that fits in with your schedule. So if you can do 10 sets a week, you're going to get 80% of the gains, no problem. And this is per muscle group, obviously. And this is another point that I want to make in this video, and that you can't calculate sets per muscle group. You've got to calculate sets per functional movement. So let's take back, for instance. Personally, I would split it and not count your vertical pull in the same number as your horizontal pull. So yes, they both hit your lats, they both hit all the muscles in your back, but they hit them at different fiber angles. So therefore, if you do 5 sets there and 5 sets there, you can't really calculate that as 10 sets, or you shouldn't, especially if you want maximum growth. So I would split that, the same with straight arm pull downs, the same when it comes to your chest. So if you can really split it and say, right, I'm doing my flat movements for my sternal fibers or my mid chest, I would calculate that on a completely different scale to my upper chest movements. Yes, there'll be overlap, and this is where your fractional sets can come in, right? So this is where you can use that half a set. So let's say you do flat bench. That's 1 set for the sternal fibers, 1 set for the mid chest. And I would count that as half a set because yes, your upper fibers are probably working half as hard. And then you look at your front delts are working. Maybe count it as 0.2 of a set. But then it starts getting really complex. So that's why we need to go back to the first way of counting it. Look at the muscles you're targeting. Count that because we know there's no upper scale. Eventually, because of the law of diminishing returns, there will be a point where you lose muscle. But you know what? In all the studies, we haven't found that point. So there's no ways you can spend enough time in the gym to reach that point where you're doing junk volume and losing muscle, because it doesn't exist. Junk volume is a thing of the past now. It's not going to hinder you by doing more volume. If anything, it's going to give you a slight edge on your gym bro who you're trying to look bigger than. So my advice and my guidelines are, don't overthink volume. You've just heard me complicate the hell of it with going 0.2 on a fractional set for the shoulders. Don't worry about that. Scrap that right out and take your time and see how many sets you can do in it. And this does not mean fly through your sets and do 20 sets at light reps, no rest period. This means do your heavy sets, then do your isolation sets. Rest the 3 minutes if you have to between, but make sure you're hitting more than 15 sets a week. That would be my guideline per muscle group. Right? If you're hitting more than 15 sets a week, you will be getting 85+% of the gains. And you know what? On those days where you're feeling strong, instead of doing, let's say, sets of 5 on the bench press, instead of doing 4 sets, do 5. And same thing for everything else. So if you can add a set into an exercise, that's going to be a lot easier than adding a whole other exercise, because then you can take away the time of setting that whole station up to then do 3 sets there. Rather pick your 3 exercises that you're already doing and just add a set on each set or each workout, and that's going to make such a big difference in terms of muscle growth. All right, so I saw this funny thing on Instagram with one of the physios. I'll see if I can pop it in the video right now, or if not, you just seen me look like an idiot. But it basically said 2024, when it comes to the shoulders, everything matters, but nothing matters. And I feel like that was 2024 was the year where research just did that. We looked at the length and partial. It mattered so much, but then after the study that Jeff did, it didn't really matter, just train hard. Same thing with volume. Now we've seen there's no volume cap where you're gonna lose gains, so guess what guys? Volume doesn't matter as long as you're doing more than 5 sets a week, which, come on, you're doing more than 5 sets in your first 2 exercises of any workout, so ultimately it doesn't matter. The thing that does matter is just train hard. Go full Greg Doucette on that one. Harder than last time, push yourself, get the numbers up on the lifts. If you're lifting heavier weights, you have to be gaining more muscle. There's no real way around that one. So just push yourself hard and you'll be golden. So guys, quick summary to sum up volume. Do more than 15 sets a week. I just missed my finger, that was really talented, right? Train hard, really push yourself and count the targeted muscle. And if you wanna know how to target a muscle, watch these. All right, guys, I hope you learned something about volume and I hope this answered the questions you have. Until then, we'll catch you in the next one.